Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt something off? Nobody has said anything yet. No one has even looked at you for more than a second. But somehow you already know the mood. You sense the tension between two coworkers. You notice the forced smile from a friend. You pick up on the tiny pause before someone answers a question, and a thought quietly forms in your mind. Something's going on here. If that sounds familiar, you might be someone who reads people unusually well. You might be the person who notices when someone says, "I'm fine," but their voice drops half a tone lower. You catch the micro expressions others miss, the subtle eye movements, the shift in posture, the way someone laughs just a little too loudly. Sometimes it almost feels like you have a sixth sense. Friends might even say things like, "How did you know that?" Or "You're overthinking it." But more often than not, you turn out to be right. So what's going on here? Why do some people seem to read emotions, intentions, and hidden tensions almost instantly, while others walk through the same interactions completely oblivious? Psychology has some fascinating answers. And interestingly enough, the ability to read people easily isn't just about being socially skilled. Sometimes it comes from places you might not expect. Let's start with something simple. Your brain is constantly scanning for patterns. Every second of every day, your mind is absorbing tiny pieces of information: facial expressions, tone of voice, word choice, body language, even the timing of someone's response in conversation. Most of this happens unconscious. Your brain quietly collects these signals and compares them to thousands of past experiences. It's like an internal prediction engine constantly asking one question: does something about this person's behavior match a familiar pattern? If it does, your brain produces a gut feeling. You know that strange moment when someone says the right words, but something inside you whispers, "I don't quite believe them." That's pattern recognition at work. Psychologists sometimes refer to this ability as high social perception. People with strong social perception are particularly good at noticing subtle emotional cues, things like micro expressions, vocal tension, or inconsistencies between words and body language. But here's where things get even more interesting. Research suggests that people who are highly sensitive to emotional cues often develop this skill for a reason. Think back to childhood environments for a moment. Imagine growing up in a household where moods could change quickly. Maybe a parent had unpredictable emotions. Maybe tension was always lingering beneath the surface. Maybe you had to figure out whether it was a safe moment to ask a question or better to stay quiet. In those environments, children often develop a powerful survival skill: emotional radar. They learn to read faces. They listen closely to tone. They notice the slightest changes in body language, because picking up those signals early can help them avoid conflict or prepare themselves emotionally. Over time, the brain becomes extremely good at detecting subtle shifts in other people's emotions. Hans. Psychologists sometimes call this hypervigilance. Now, that word can sound negative, but in reality, it's more complex than that. Hypervigilance simply means your brain is highly alert to social and emotional signals. And in many situations, that sensitivity becomes a powerful advantage. Think about the friend who always seems to know when someone in the group is struggling, or the coworker who can sense tension in meetings before anyone else notices, or the person who instinctively knows when someone needs comfort. Even when they insist, they're fine. These people often aren't psychic, they're just incredibly good observers. Their brains are constantly reading microsignals that most people filter out. Take facial expressions, for example. The human face can produce over 10,000 distinct expressions, and many of them happen incredibly fast, sometimes lasting less than a quarter of a second. These are called micro expressions, and they can reveal emotions people are trying to hide. Someone might smile while talking to you, but for a split second, their eyebrows tighten in frustration, or their lips press together in annoyance before relaxing again. Most people miss these signals entirely, but some brains catch them instantly. And once you start noticing these patterns, you can't really unsee them. It's like suddenly realizing how many background sounds exist in a quiet room. Once your brain becomes aware of them, they stand out everywhere. But here's the paradox. People who read others easily often struggle with something unexpected: overthinking. Because when you notice more signals, you also have more information to interpret. You notice the hesitation in someone's reply, the shift in eye contact, the change in texting tone, the pause before they say your name, and your brain immediately starts connecting dots. Did I say something wrong? Are they upset? Are they hiding something? Sometimes your instincts are correct, but other times, your brain is simply trying to solve a puzzle that doesn't actually exist. Psychologists call this thin slicing, a concept popularized by psychologist Malcolm Gladwell. Thin slicing refers to the brain's ability to make quick judgments based on very small amounts of information. In many cases, thin slicing can be surprisingly accurate. Studies have shown that people can often judge personality traits, confidence levels, and even relationship dynamics from extremely brief observations, sometimes just seconds of interaction. But thin slicing has a catch. Your brain is making predictions, not certainties. And when you're someone who reads people well, the challenge becomes learning when to trust your intuition and when to pause it, because emotional perception can become exhausting if it runs nonstop. Some people who read others easily describe feeling overwhelmed in social environments. Crowded rooms feel loud, not just because of noise, but because of emotional signals everywhere. You notice the awkwardness between two strangers, the tension in someone's forced laugh, the nervous energy in a group conversation. It's like walking through a room where dozens of emotional radio stations are playing simultaneously, and your brain picks up every frequency. But there's another side to this ability. People who read others well are often deeply empathetic. When you notice emotional signals easily, it becomes harder to ignore them. You sense when someone feels left out. You feel when someone is uncomfortable. You pick up on sadness even when it's hidden behind humor. And empathy naturally follows awareness. This is why many therapists, writers, artists, and emotionally intelligent leaders often share this trait. Their ability to notice subtle emotional patterns allows them to understand people in ways that others might overlook. They see the story beneath the surface. But empathy also requires boundaries, because reading people easily can sometimes lead to absorbing emotions that don't belong to you. If someone walks into the room stressed, you might feel that tension immediately. If someone is quietly upset, you may sense it before they even speak. Over time, this can make emotional environments feel heavier than they actually are, which is why people with strong social perception often benefit from learning something incredibly important. Not every emotion you detect is yours to carry. Sometimes noticing is enough. You don't have to solve every problem, decode every mood, or fix every uncomfortable moment. Just seeing what others miss is already a powerful skill. And here's something fascinating. Research in neuroscience suggests that some people have particularly active mirror neuron systems, networks in the brain that respond when we observe others' emotions and actions. These neurons help us simulate other people's experiences internally. When you see someone smile, parts of your brain activate as if you were smiling yourself. When you see someone in pain, your brain partially mirrors that experience. In people who read others easily, this system may simply be more responsive, which means their brains naturally tune into the emotional states of people around them. But here's the beautiful part. This ability, reading people, sensing emotions, noticing subtle signals, isn't just about detecting problems. It's also about connection. When someone feels understood, something remarkable happens. Their nervous system relaxes, their guard drops, they feel seen. And sometimes all it takes for that to happen is someone quietly noticing what others overlook. A friend who says, "Hey, you seem a little quieter today. Everything okay?" A coworker who recognizes when someone needs encouragement. A partner who senses stress before it's spoken aloud. Those small moments of awareness can change the entire emotional tone of a relationship. So if you're someone who reads people easily, it's worth remembering something. Your mind isn't too sensitive. Your brain has simply become skilled at interpreting the emotional language humans constantly speak without words. It's a language of pauses, glances, tone shifts, and tiny facial movements. And while that skill can sometimes make the world feel a little heavier, it also gives you something incredibly valuable: insight, the ability to see the emotional layers beneath everyday interactions, the ability to understand people not just by what they say, but by what they feel. Fun. And in a world where many people struggle to truly listen or notice each other, that ability is surprisingly rare. So the next time you catch yourself sensing something others miss, don't immediately dismiss it as overthinking. Sometimes it might be, but sometimes it's simply awareness. Your brain connecting patterns, your intuition reading signals, your empathy noticing the quiet emotions hiding, and that awareness, when balanced with healthy boundaries, can become one of the most powerful forms of emotional intelligence. So now I'm curious, Watali, are you someone who reads people easily? Do you often sense moods, intentions, or hidden emotions before anyone else notices? Or have you ever had that strange moment where you just knew something about a person and later realized you were right? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences. And if you enjoy exploring the psychology behind everyday human behavior, make sure to subscribe and stick around, because the human mind is full of fascinating patterns we're only beginning to understand.